Hey everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. Looking at the second XL-2 for the weekend. We've already heard one run, so I don't think Bryan's going to be too upset if we don't go into that. We'll go into something else associated with this saw. So, it's running great, by the way. No problems at all. Very minor stuff needed. The guide bar maintenance, though, that's what I want to talk about. So this has got a 12-inch bar. This is a 3/8 setup. And this bar has got some wear. Now, it's not worn out. I kind of wanted to give you guys a little sense of when it's time to perform some bar maintenance. So for starters, I'm just going to put the chain on here. See how much that wobbles? Now, granted, it's not tensioned, but that's pretty loose. These rails have spread some. Not a huge amount. I mean, we're probably talking about, this is going to be the tightest back here, and then right before the nose. That just doesn't wear as much. The sprocket tip lifts the bar, or the chain up off the bar, way up here. Usually your wide points are going to be right out in the field here. So, we're talking 1/32 of an inch at most, but it makes a difference. So that's the first part. Second part is, hopefully this thing is focusing. I can't tell on the viewfinder, but eventually you wear a trough. The chain is riding down in here. The outer edge out here doesn't wear as much, so you get kind of a slight trough here. This side is more obvious. There's actually a ledge right there. And back at the very back of the bar, there's spots where it's kind of peeled over. Now this also indicates to me the saw was probably run with a malfunctioning or non-functioning oiler at some point in its lifetime. But there's also some damage here from the chain being run too loose and hammering. Now I won't be able to take all that out. There's a rust spot right there. But I'll be able to get this looking pretty good on the chain surface. So the first thing I'll do is go through and close the rails. Now I don't have that neat attachment that goes on the bar shop. And despite what, a couple of my buddies have told me I don't need to collect bar shops just to get attachments. I'm not going to do that. I don't have enough room for what I got right now. And I'm really happy with the one I have. This is not a high quality tool. It uses 2 bearings. And you tighten this up and run it along your rail until it tightens. Downside of that is you can go too far. You got to be careful. Once it starts to close, you want to frequently pull that off and check your chain in the groove. And you don't want to over tighten it. You want a slight wobble there. You don't want it to bind and create extra heat. That's just not cool. But that's what I start with. And I always work from the tail of the bar out, and I stop right about here. I don't want to risk compressing the bar around the sprocket tip. And I know it's not worn right there, or at least very little. So work both sides like that. Once the rails are closed to the point that I'm happy with them, that's when I'll go ahead and across the grinding wheel like this on a perfectly level surface to get a perfectly level surface on this. 90 degrees to your grinding wheel, you get a flat surface back on here. And you'll notice real fast whether one side is higher than the other, which is usually true. That's a combination of filing error, natural cutting tendencies, failure to flip the bar every once in a blue moon. You want to do that. They're meant to run both directions. You know, who cares if the logo's upside down? Doesn't matter. You want your bar to wear evenly, you're going to do it. So, anyway, I'll grind that flat. This doesn't look bad. There's plenty of groove depth there. I could go at it with a grooving wheel, but I'm not going to at this point. So, anyway, this is a good example of a bar that can easily be reconditioned. Now, if you've got craters like this that are way down here, you're going to need to find either a new bar or somebody who can weld junk you know, get some good hard metal back in here and then re-groove this. Those grooving wheels, they're tough, but it would take a little effort to really cut a lot of hardened material down. So I guess the moral of the story is do minor maintenance on these things often as opposed to major maintenance once in its lifetime. So anyway, I'm gonna get started. Okay, about as best I can zoom in and still get a good angle on it. So I mount the bar in the vise. Make sure your jaws aren't compressing the lower rail, and then make sure your chain is where you can get it back in the bar. Now that's our baseline. Fairly loose. I found with the sharp edges on these bars, a pair of gloves is not a bad idea. So I'll get this thing started. Now that feels fairly, and is fairly tight. This isn't a race. So just make some passes. If you're really good, you can see where it might not be, you know, you might not have gotten a good pass. You can go back and focus on that area. Okay. Normally you have to go at it a couple times. This isn't super spread. Let's see. Can go a little bit more. You can see it's a little tighter back here than it is out in the field. But not too much more. This is right at that point where you can easily go too much. Now, I haven't tightened it. I'm just taking a couple more rolling passes. That's, yeah, boy, that's close. See, I've gone too far before and had to spread it, and that's a pain in the ass. I'm just going to tighten a smidge here. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yep. Once I get that ground flat, I'm going to be happy with that. Definitely. Okay. So now we'll flip it and do the same thing. And if you're saying to yourself, well, hell, just leave that thing set where you just had it, you're right. I'm going to, if I can get it on. In a case, see, that went on. Some cases you get a really badly spread bar, and you have to loosen it back up in order to even get it over the rails. And this is not a precision tool. This nut loosens up. You have to keep these loose so the bearings, or this one's got to be loose so that the bearing will slide in and out. So it's not going to win any awards for precision. Just kind of got to know what you're looking for and what you're hoping to get out of it. And that's a reason to go slow and test fit. All right. Oh yes, right there. That's what I wanted. Okay. So that part is done. Yeah, it looks like we'll be doing a light touch-up on that chain too. At first I didn't think it was going to need it, but looks like the one side tagged a stone or some dirt or something. But anyway, that is a tighter groove. And if you really are looking at it in person and paying attention, you can see a difference there. So now, let's go to the bar shop. Okay, we are set up and ready to go. So just a procedural thing. I like to go from the nose and then work my way like this. And I try to wear the wheel as evenly as possible. It's always going to get some taper to it, but I want to make that wheel last. So you've got to roll your sprocket so it's in just the right spot that you don't nick one of those teeth when you're starting out. It's not the end of the world if you do, but you don't want to jack them up if you can avoid it. So, let's do it. So nice quick passes like that. You can already see a wear pattern here. The outer edge all the way along on this side, but on this other side of the rail, from here to there, the wheel hasn't even touched yet. So that means the chain was leaning over as it was riding and wearing that side more than this side. Okay, that pass took quite a bit more off of my right hand side here, but we still have got an area from there on that side that hasn't even touched. So I'm going to take a few passes and see where we get. We're at 2. I'm going to try and keep count. Okay, I think that was 9. We'll see when we get to the video. So you can see that there's a nice shiny pattern across the entire thing. There's still a few nicks and chips over here on this rail. So I'm going to go ahead and take about 2 more passes and then call this side good and go to the next one. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Okay, I can tell just by the feel that this is doing the same thing. So whoever was filing most of the chains on this saw, I'm not good enough to remember which side they're filing shorter than the other, but I would almost guarantee that that's what it is. Because this side of the bar, it barely even touched, and a lot of air from there out to here, it barely even touched on that first pass. Yet this side, we got pretty good coverage. Okay, that was around, I think, 8 passes, and that side wasn't worn as bad. This rust damage that's right here, I mean, we could grind all the way down here and you still wouldn't get out of it, so I'm just going to leave it, it's fine. We're going to do a quick hand file to remove some of the burrs on the end like this, and then it gets a natural sharp edge once you've ground it. So we're just going to take a flat file and clean that up. Okay, so just a regular old flat file. And depending on how brutal you need to get with it, you can go with a super coarse file. But this isn't bad, so I'm just going to go with a nice smooth one. Now, the way I'm holding this, it's just shy of filing across the whole bar. And basically, when I can run my thumb with the leather piece across there and not feel it catch, I'm happy. Spent a little extra time on the tail here. There we go. Yeah. And to get the other side, just flip it. And no, I'm not damaging the bar surface that I just filed, or ground, because I'm holding it at such a low angle there. Just trying to clean this up. Not looking to remove a bunch of material. Just the sharp edges. That's the worst burr right there. I was hoping it would kind of break off. And it hasn't. There it goes. Done. Perfect. Okay. Now, it is worth your time to clean this out a little bit. Move this out of the way. Normally I do this outside, but I don't want to set up the camera yet again. I had already cleaned the groove out with the bar groove cleaner, but after you grind, you're going to have metal debris in there. Well, that's not good for your sprocket in the nose of the bar. It's not good for the chain. And you can see all that dark right there. That is metal shavings that we just blew out of there. Now, you could also clean the grooves out with an air hose. And I wanted to make sure this was cleaned out, the sprocket as well, so it just killed two birds with one stone. And despite what you see on the forums, I am an absolute proponent of the greasing. I've lost track of, and that was one pump on each side, and you can see it squirting out there. That's good enough. Yes, these saws put out a good amount of oil when their oilers are working properly. That's not the point. That isn't the point at all. You've got somewhere around 30 little needles in this that need to stay lubricated. And I've seen plenty of arguments over on places like Arborist's site, and it's usually steel guys. I don't know why. I shouldn't put that chain on yet. I need to sharpen it. It's usually steel guys who are blathering about, oh, it puts out enough oil, you don't need grease, that's just going to attract dirt, yada, 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 yada. Well, sure, grease is going to attract dirt, but think about an old, hub-style bearing on an old front end, where the cap has been lost or left off and some fool has taped a piece of PVC pipe over it. And then the tape goes away, and then pretty soon, you're running around with no cap over that bearing. Well, the grease on the outside is going to collect some crap, but it forms a protective layer. So don't give me all that garbage. And besides, in reality, if your saw's oiler is working right, you're going to have a constant refreshing of oil to clean anything that does get in here out. The grease is extra protection in those needles. It's not about being up here. When you see it up here, it's already useless. It's about that batch of needles that's down there in the tip that you want to stay clean. And quite frankly, if you read Homelite's original literature, they said grease the bar on every tank of fuel. Now, I won't say that I'm religious about that, but definitely every third or fourth. You better believe it. And it does make a difference. So anyway, enough of my ranting. I'm going to run that chain over the grinder, and maybe we will throw it on here and listen to a test run. Alright. I'm just about ready for a test run. I'm going to make sure that this thing's getting enough oil, because I don't think it has in the past. Chain is fairly stretched. It's not shot, but it would be in short order. Okay. Now note the way I was rolling that over, you can really slice your fingers on a sharp chain. I was being very careful. The one thing you never want to do is try to run it backwards, because if it jams and you slip, you're probably going to get 2 fingers all bloodied up. I suppose if you enjoy that kind of thing, go right ahead, but for the most of us that don't, well, don't. Alright, I'm going to fire it up and run it long enough to see some oil spray off of here. Mission accomplished. I can see it's starting to get wet up here. There's enough buildup on this chain from a previous cutting session that it'll take a while to shine everything up, but that's what you want, is for it to shine up. When you're cutting, your cutters should be shiny. If they're building up crap, I mean, pitchy wood will allow it to build up something on a cutter, but it also ought to not be terrible. If the whole thing is gumming up, you got a problem. Whether it's a plugged oil port on your bar or something else, you better stop and figure it out. I'm comfortable with this. That sprocket's kind of noisy. It's got some wear, but it wasn't worn out. Not even close. But I'm comfortable this is going to oil that nice ground surface on the bar just fine. Yeah. I'll let this saw sit with my normal, couple days and then fire it up. But Bryan, I'm comfortable it's ready to go. And folks, I hope that was a little helpful with kind of looking at when you need to service the guide bar.